Hello and welcome to episode 136 of My Circus, My Monkeys. Have you and your team taken the CliftonStrengths assessment, but don't really use it as much as you thought? You had such high hopes for how it would improve your and your team's lives, but after the initial training and the discussions, it just kind of fell by the wayside. Well, that's actually pretty common. So, in this episode, I want to break down a few ways that you and your team can easily integrate this powerful tool into your daily lives. So, stay tuned. So, one of the more common things we hear is something along the lines of, we've all taken Clifton Strengths, but we haven't really utilized it on a regular basis. We want to do more with it, but aren't really sure where to start. And honestly, that is pretty typical. I mean, taking the assessment and doing the initial training is fun and insightful. And plus, you've intentionally set aside that time. But after that, life gets in the way, right? You want to do more, but since you're not quite sure what to do, and now there's a student crying in your office, you tuck it away until you have more time to think about it. And of course, you never get that more time. And quite frankly, it can feel overwhelming to try and integrate a new thing into an already overwhelmed schedule. I remember when we started using Clifton Strengths on our campus, conceptually, I thought it was awesome. But since I really didn't understand all 34 talent themes or what I'm supposed to do with them, I pretty much relied on Alicia and another colleague, Erin, to train my team and tell me what to do next. And even then, I kind of ignored their suggestions on next steps because I felt like I had to master everything first before I jumped in. But you do not have to know everything about all 34 talent themes or even your own talent themes to start this process. We want to help you and your team start using this amazing tool to increase your productivity and your sense of well-being. So today, I'm going to give you a few strengths hacks to help you upgrade how you use this tool for yourself and your team. And when I say hacks, I really just mean ways to do it, but they are relatively easy. So, hack. So let's start out with this. Use two powerful questions. Let's talk about the two most useful questions you can use to integrate strengths into your daily practice and increase your productivity. In almost any situation, asking one or both of these questions can go a long way to improve outcomes and utilizing this tool. First one, how are your talent themes helping you with blank? So the blank is, of course, whatever you're talking about with a student, with a project, with yourself and your ability to get your work done, whatever it is. The second question, how are your talent themes getting in the way with blank? Again, whatever the same issue. And you can tweak those statements based on the situation, past tense, if you're thinking about something that hasn't happened yet, like you're getting ready to start a project, it's how can your talent themes help you with those, with whatever it is. Or again, if you're reflecting on something that's already happened, how did they help you or get in your way, etc. You can figure that out. But you can use these questions as self-reflection prompts or to help coach your team members and even your students if they've taken the assessment as well. And I will add that when you first start using these questions, you might not get the most insightful answers either from yourself or the people that you're asking. Why is that? Well, because people don't typically think about themselves in this way. And if you haven't been talking about strengths much in the past, your team members and students may not even remember what their talent themes really mean, or maybe even what they are. And that's okay. You just have to pull up their reports and have them look at one or two to get started. Like, oh, okay, well, you have adaptability. Let's see what that means. Go ahead and read it. Okay, how do you think that's helping you here? How do you think it might be getting in your way? So the important thing is to just keep at it. You're setting up the expectation that this is how we're navigating things now. And eventually, they're going to start coming prepared to answer these questions. And it'll be easier for you the more you keep at it. All right, second hack. Review your CliftonStrengths report and have your team review theirs. Alicia and I have been using this tool for almost 10 years. And each time we reread our reports or just one of our talent themes, we get some new insight about ourselves. So make this a habit for you and your team. Set aside time on your schedule, maybe once a month or once a semester, to reread a talent theme or the whole thing, and have your team members do the same. Then add on an accountability piece by having folks share what those new insights are in your next team meeting or one-on-one. And I'll just add that if it has been a while since you did your initial strengths training and you haven't been using it much or at all, then I would really recommend doing another training around it as a refresher and to kick you back into gear. And we're, of course, happy to help you with that if you don't have someone on campus who can do it for you. And if this is you, please don't feel like you wasted the time and money on the initial training. Our brains learn and grow through repetition and consistency. But that's not typically our standard operating procedure. We usually do something once and think it's going to stick. So think about all the other trainings or books that you've bought that seem to be just as exciting, but you also didn't do anything with them. And I've done this too many times to count. So it's not about judging, and it's not even about you. It's about how our brains work. So investing in more training is actually preventing you from wasting that initial training dollars. And this time, you'll know what you need to do to keep the momentum going. All right, third hack, reflect on your talent themes. Yes, you have a list of your top 10 or top 5 talent themes at this point, and you even have a lovely description of that talent theme in your report. But the real power of this tool comes from reflecting on how your talents show up for you. Remember, your talents can be your greatest superpower, but they can also be your kryptonite. If you don't know how your talents are showing up, they can very well be getting in your way. So take a few minutes every day to reflect on how your talents helped you and how they might have gotten in your way. Again, we're going back to those 2 initial powerful questions. And when I say a few minutes, I mean like 2 to 5 minutes a day. And that's going to go a long way to helping you understand your talent themes patterns. And no, of course, you're not going to get an exhaustive list of how they showed up over the day in 2 to 5 minutes. But what it will do is create a habit of thinking about yourself in terms of your strengths. And that means with time, instead of reflecting after the fact, your brain's going to start to kick in the moment. Hey, you're doing that thing with your strategic again that ends up stressing you out. So knock it off. And that means you can start shifting in the moment, which is extremely powerful. And again, it is easy for life to get in the way of your plans, so put it on your calendar. And since this is such a short period of time, one great way to make it stick is by combining it with another habit you already have. Do you always go to grab a coffee in the morning? Well, while you're waiting for your order, reflect and make some notes about how your talents showed up. Do you usually just zone out or think about other projects during those committee meetings? Why not use that time instead to reflect on how your talent themes are showing up, both in the meeting and in general? All right. I don't remember what number we're on. Next hack, maybe 4, coaching. So whether you're coaching your team as a group or individually, be sure to bring in those 2 powerful questions. And if you're not sure what I mean by coaching, check out some past episodes on that topic. But in a nutshell, coaching is about helping lead and develop your team by asking them questions versus feeding them answers. And my guess is your folks probably come to you frequently to ask questions or get your advice on things. And yes, it's easier and faster to just give them an answer. But if you want to help your team grow, reflect, and maybe figure stuff out on their own in the future, coaching is the way to go. So The next time Chris comes to you and says they're stuck with a student issue or on a project, either during a scheduled meeting or just a drop by, it doesn't really matter. Ask them, how do you think your talents might be getting in your way here? And once they've landed on something, discuss it a bit and then ask them, well, how do you think your other talents could help you here? We often get stuck because we're overusing one of our talent themes. So by redirecting them to lean into something else that they do well, that's better suited for the situation, you've helped them resolve the issue and given them a way to process future struggles. This is also a great opportunity to encourage folks to connect with other team members who may have different talent themes. Sometimes leaning into one of your other talent themes does the trick, like we just talked about. But other times, it might be more effective to reach out to someone who has a strength that could more directly tackle the issue. For example, my friend Rebecca always struggled to create flyers for her events, but I loved doing that. So, from a team productivity perspective, Rebecca struggling for 3 hours on a poster that might not even get students' attention was a waste of our overall resources. So, what made more sense was for me to do them and have her do those pesky spreadsheets for me. Next hack, use it during meetings. Another easy way to incorporate Clifton Strengths is during meetings. Yes, you can specifically add strengths to the agenda and have folks share insights and things they've noticed when they were reviewing their reports or patterns they've noticed in their daily reflections. You can absolutely set aside time for that. But you can also use it to problem solve, reflect on completed projects or events, or to plan for future projects and events. So how does this work? You guessed it. Start with the two powerful questions. So let's say you're concerned about vandalism in the rest hall. How might our talent themes be getting in the way of addressing this problem? And remember, our talent themes don't just impact what we do, but how we see the world and feel about it. So maybe some folks are letting their biases impact how they're approaching a situation. It can be very powerful to have a conversation and have someone realize and acknowledge, I see that my empathy or individualization or consistency, whatever it is, might be getting in the way here. If you just finished your annual whatever festival, that's a great time to ask the team how their talents helped make the event a success and how they might have gotten in the way. And I will just add here that even if your event is a complete success, that doesn't mean there's not room for improvement. Often, that improvement means identifying ways that our talents got a little bit out of control in certain areas, which led you or them to spend too much time in that area. So remember those signs that I made for Rebecca? Well, if I wasn't careful, I could spend days creating and revising them. So knowing this helps your team be more productive in the future. Finally, a great time to discuss strengths is as you're prepping for that new event, project, or initiative. Sometimes people volunteer to do things because no one else volunteered, or at least they didn't volunteer quickly enough for their liking. Or they just know that somebody needs to do it, so they figure they can be that somebody. But that doesn't mean that they're the best person for that job. So take the time to ask whose talents are best suited to do X or Y. Discuss what talent themes in the group might show up in ways that prevent you from doing your best or doing your best efficiently. And by the way, this doesn't mean that if someone's talents might get in the way with something that they shouldn't do it. But by taking the time to discuss this as a team, folks can better select the parts of the project that is best aligned with their talent themes. And if there is something they know might get in the way, you guys can make a plan to avoid that. And that can include partnering with others for support. For example, I have input and I love researching ideas and best practices. But because I love it so much, sometimes I do it longer than is helpful for the overall project. Since Alicia knows that about me, she can check in and see where I am. And if 2 weeks have gone by and I'm still researching, she can gently remind me to knock it off. And why do I need to knock it off? Because we have to put things into motion. And other people are waiting to do their part based on what I do. All right, next hack, how to use it during training. So, as I mentioned earlier, training on strengths itself is always a great idea. And if you haven't had anyone explain the framework and help folks interpret their reports, that's step one. If you did do that, but didn't keep up the momentum, do it again, like we talked about before. And there's also other trainings that can help you dig deeper into CliftonStrengths and the results that your team members have, how to better understand yourself and utilize it. For example, one of the things that we talk about in the Supervisor Strengths Institute and even just in team trainings is how to help folks discover their authentic leadership style based on their talent themes. But training through a strengths lens doesn't just have to be about CliftonStrengths itself. You can use it for pretty much anything. You don't have to develop new things for your summer and fall trainings. Many of you are planning those trainings right now to prepare your teams for the fall semester. And you may be wondering, well, how should we incorporate this into the things that don't really seem to directly relate, like emergency procedures or getting onboarded for that new software that you finally got permission to purchase? How do you incorporate people's talents into stuff like that? Now, I would love to tell you that it's super complicated and then you absolutely need to hire us to figure it out, but it's actually pretty easy. Remember those two powerful questions? Well, for every topic, no matter how obscure or unconnected it seems to be, just have folks reflect on how their talent themes might help them do that thing and how they might get in the way. We use the same worksheet over and over again in our trainings. We just tweak the title a little bit and add the name of whatever that topic is. So what does that look like? Well, you do the training around whatever it is. So you tell folks what they need to know about emergency procedures, and then you have them fill out the worksheet around how their talents might help them and how they might get in the way. Once folks have reflected, discuss as a team. Now, I should point out that with all of this, simply identifying how you and your team members might get in the way, how your team members' talents, might get in the way for a certain thing is just the first step. The end goal is really to come up with a plan to keep it from happening in the future. So like me and the flyers, I know I love designing them so much that I might take an obscene amount of time to do so if I'm not careful. So really the question is, how do I avoid that from happening? So these are just a few examples, but these are the things that you can brainstorm with your team. So for me, I can give myself a 2-hour deadline to make the flyer. I could lean into one of my other talent themes like strategic or context that will help me keep on track. I could schedule a student worker to put up the flyers at 4 o'clock, so I can't really fudge on the deadline. Because yeah, I can give myself a deadline of 2 hours, but then I can give myself another 2 hours if I am feeling like I want it. But if the student worker's coming, I can't really do that or I'm wasting their time. Or I could tell Alicia that she needs to stop by at a certain time and punch me in the face if I'm not finished with the flyer. A slightly more violent approach, and she probably wouldn't do it, but she would at least gently remind me to stop. Now, again, step one for all of this is just becoming more mindful of how you and your folks are using your talent themes on autopilot. Once you know that, you can start coaching your team to lean into other talents, partner with other people on your team, or create new habits and systems to increase productivity around that area. All of this can be easily integrated into your current systems, meetings, and trainings. You just have to be intentional and consistent. And it might take folks, including yourself, a while to adjust and feel comfortable with this new way of thinking. But just be patient. Set clear expectations for yourself and for your team on how you're going to integrate this approach, and then make sure you're holding folks accountable as everyone upgrades their understanding and their use of strengths. Hopefully, this has given you some tangible ways to increase your use of Clifton Strengths for yourself and your team. Nothing I mentioned here is particularly difficult, but we know that implementing new things when you're already overloaded can be challenging. And if that's you, we'd love to assist you as you prep for upcoming trainings or to just upgrade how you use Clifton Strengths with your team. Just reach out to us at Anne, at strengthsuniversity.org, and we can get you the support you need to use this powerful tool to increase your team's productivity and sense of well-being.